Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2 3. Check 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 1 2 3. Check check check. Microphone 1 2 3. Check. Yo, I can hear myself through the phone.
Yeah, where is the piano?
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Welcome to the Loft. My name is Colleen Kolar-Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the Campus Performances and Events Office here on campus, and we oversee the wonderful program that is Art Power. And one of the exciting parts of Art Power is that we get to have evenings like this, where we get to talk to amazing artists and go beyond the stage to be able to get to know them a little bit better and ask them some questions. So tonight's going to be super casual. And if there's time, we can see if you have additional questions. We'd love to hear from you as well. But first, can I get a warm welcome for the Hermitage trio? We've got Sergey, Ilya, and Misha with us. And my first question is, you've been together quite some time, but each of you is really an accomplished soloist in your own right. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your own personal story and journey, how you got here?
Good evening. My name is Sergey Antonov. How did I get here? So I'm originally from Moscow, Russia. I've been living in the United States for almost 20 years. I know Ilya actually since the 3rd grade. We went to school back in Moscow pretty much all my life. I can tell you the story how I got into the trio. I got one evening I got a phone call from the person who I had no idea who that is, from an unknown number. Back then I would pick up the phone with the unknown numbers. And it turned out to be Misha, who introduced himself. We talked, and he said, listen, we're putting together a trio. Would you like to come and try a couple rehearsals, maybe a performance with us? And I said, yeah, sure, of course, I would love to. And that's how the trio was formed. A little inside, we did have a different pianist at that moment.
I took care of him.
Ilya took care of him. But when the situation was brought up, the thing is that Ilya and I, we've been playing together at that point for several years, and that's how Ilya ended up in the trio. So yeah, I started cello when I was 5.5 with my mom. I was born into a very cellistic family. Both of my parents, my late father was a cellist. My mom is a cello teacher, still actively teaching. So it was not really my choice, but I guess it worked out. So I'm happy. My mom is happy.
How about you, Ilya?
Well, I hope that my mother is happy as well. And you already know pretty much everything about me, since yeah, originally from Moscow, moved here right after high school. Went to college in New York, then to another one, then to another one, then to another one. I like colleges, I guess.
You're at another one right here.
And that's why, yeah. And then I'm the first musician in the family. And how it started, I have an older brother. He's about 3 years older, and he started taking piano lessons when he was a kid. And in a few months, I ended up playing better than him, even though I wasn't taking lessons. So my parents decided to switch, so I started taking lessons. And since then, how I got here, I kept practicing, and here we are.
What happened to your brother?
He is a ballet dancer.
Okay.
Yeah, he used to work in. He studied in a academy by the Bolshoi Theater in Moscow, and he worked in the theater in Moscow. Then he moved. He worked for a season at the Boston Ballet, and right now he's successfully teaching in New York City.
So it worked out for both of you.
Yes,
Good.
he did.
So my story is I came here as a young kid, very young kid, as an immigrant. We left, my parents brought me and my older brother to the United States, and I ended up at the Juilliard School in the pre-college. My mom is a violinist, so is my older brother, who is still a member of the Seattle Symphony. And little by little, I realized that I loved violin because, like Sergei, I didn't really have a choice to become somebody else. I thought it's like a natural thing to play the instrument that your mom plays. My dad is not a musician. He's an electrical engineer, but he accompanied my mom. We're from St. Petersburg, and she was in the Philharmonic and the opera. And you may remember, because in this country too, at some point, there used to be live music to movies, so she did that too. So he probably heard more of music than all three of us combined, my father, over the years of being so devoted to listening to music. And I basically ended up in New York. We came, as I said, and I got into Juilliard pre-college, and New York is still my base, even though I now have my own family with kids and things like that. And it's true that maybe another interesting color about our trio is that when usually what happens is that in any musical profession, be it a band or you put a band together, you try things out and you hope it works out, and then you look for somebody who wants to manage you. Hopefully somebody will notice you. Well, here was the opposite, because I was approached together with the original pianist by a famed manager. He wanted to have a elite piano trio made out of musicians that came from the Soviet Union that are now American citizens living in the States. So it was the reverse idea, where we had the management, we just had to find the right combination. And we did try different cellos before. Sergei, of course, when the original pianist, two of us are still original members, so the trio made some decisions that he wanted to do other things. As Sergei said, it was a natural process to fairly audition Ilya, because you can be a great soloist, but when you're in chamber music, that's an art form too, because you need to play as one, and if one is trying to play more than the other or think they're better than the others, that just doesn't work. Example, sports teams. You can put 5 superstars on a basketball court and they may not win. They will be very talented, but it's teamwork. This is basically what it is, and that's how basically the story is. And including the COVID years, we've been together now trio has existed for almost 13 years. So
That's amazing. Other than the kind of what you just spoke to with the being collaborative ensemble and truly working to be one, do you have any other secrets on what's kept you together for that long?
I think our number one job is to deliver on stage. It's 3 personalities. Each of us have their own families. Each of us have their own schedule. But in my personal belief, you need to rehearse. You need to rehearse not before a concert, way ahead. You need to be ready. And because people show up at your concert and they want to hear a concert of chamber music. If they want to hear a great cellist with 2 accompanists or a great pianist with 2 accompanists, that's not what piano trio is all about. So I think the secret here is that you have to take it very seriously, which is one of the reasons why I personally believe that there are no great piano trios around anymore like they used to, because it's being taken kind of like, oh, you can throw 3 good enough people together. You have a pianist who can play loudly, cover up the weaknesses in the strings or things. No, I mean, because a string quartet, which we have many good, it's a way of life, because they need to literally work every week hard together. Piano trio, we can not be so intense in terms of rehearsal schedule, but we need to, in my belief, we need to continue Like, we're working on this program, we're already in the back, we're rehearsing a different program. Because if you show up for a concert hoping that we can put it together, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good, and yeah, we can probably, with our talent, get around it, but that's not what it, it's sort of, you need to dedicate yourself to it. So for me, I think being 100% all in, that's the way to do it. And sure, we have better concerts, and we have even better concerts, sometimes not as good as we had hoped, but that, if you put in the effort, again, like sports people, they have a off night once in a while, but the other motto, we are as good as the weakest link. So if two of us play a great concert and the third one doesn't, we all didn't play a good concert. And you have to challenge yourself, because the day you come off stage and say, wow, that was the greatest concert in the world. And I have heard some musicians talk about, I've never played better in my life. Well, okay, as an individual, maybe, but at the three of us, it's always somebody can find something. So,
Anybody else on that one? What's kept you together?
What's your secret?
Patience.
Same. I wanted to say it at the same time, just to figure it out.
That's right. The three of you have been signed to create some albums, yes, and some CDs. One that has come out, Rachmaninoff, yes, that has been met with really critical acclaim from critics and fans alike. This is a series of recordings you're going to be doing. Can you speak to, two-parter, one, how is that process for you in recording versus performing in live? And two, I want to make sure we know what's coming up next.
well, I'll give a brief consensus how COVID affected everything in every profession, everything. So we put out our first album ever. We're signed by a really nice company. We make a recording in a really nice place, and suddenly we get nominated for 3 Grammys for that debut recording. We're at the Grammys. We didn't win, but that's still fine. And then a month later, the whole world just shuts down. I remember exactly, we were on stage in Dallas on February 29th. Next time we were on stage was April 10th the following year, wearing masks and playing amongst audience who were seated literally as far as these tables are apart from each other, which was understandable. So we were so happy. We're in such a high for the Rachmaninoff, and the record company had ideas. That, of course, got all pulled back. So, believe it or not, I'll let one of the other colleagues talk about the process. But finally, things came back, and we just actually, this is our day 19 of our being in California. No, we have not had 19 concerts or 15. We actually have this concert is the only one. Why? Because we were at Skywalker Studios recording 2 albums. So we will never be in that case of not having something out and something, as they say, in the can. And then we did something else, which was never done by the record company. We actually sat in and edited both albums. So hopefully by end of September, you will have a Spanish disc from us. And one of the pieces that we're playing tonight, the Casado, which is the last piece of the program, is part of that disc, which barring anything unforeseen, should be out, as I said, by September. And we did another one, which we can't really talk about, but that will be coming out in the future. So, and maybe one of you can talk about the process of live performance versus recording.
I'll say a couple words. I prefer live performances because in general, in a live performance, well, it's a joke, but as one person said, as they say, like, it's the most important thing is to start together and to finish together. Whatever happens in the middle doesn't, well, obviously it is not true, but on a recording it's not gonna, because if you release the recording, every single little thing that happened during it will be there forever. So it has to be perfect in a way.
Or at least close to perfect.
Well, yeah, as close as you can get. So that's why it is completely different feeling. It's if you stay, well, we stayed right now, so 4 days for each CD, you get the concentration is just it's absolutely ridiculous. After 6-8 hours of recording, your brain just shuts down. You can't do anything else because imagine performing like tonight is gonna be just 1 hour and a half, but imagine doing that and giving 100% for 8 hours straight. Is just, and a lot of musicians really hate recording because you know that mic is right there and it's gonna catch everything you do. So it is a different experience, that's for sure.
For me, the bunch of difficulties, right? First is the purpose. So we release the recording to do what? Because for me, the recording is a photograph. If you want to capture a photograph of a beautiful sunrise, it's never going to be the same. The next morning is going to be different. You're just going to have that one picture. And then you start working yourself up because you want to put everything you possibly can in that picture for it to sort of live a long life, right? And have a purpose, tell the story, right? Then you get in the studio, and we work with a producer. So the producer is in the recording process is the person who basically tells us what to do. So we create the vision, we create the interpretation. The producer makes sure that it's all on tape. How we all, including the producer, how we all agree that needs to be on tape. Now then, imagine you have to record a poem of 3 pages, and you start playing start reading the first page again and again and again and again and again. You completely forget what the poem is about because you're trying to do, especially with 3 people, right? The chances, that's why there's so many Bach recordings, cello suites, you know. The chance you can get the best take. Each time we play it, we call it take, right? You can play the best take on it, and somebody else screw this up. So we started over to make sure 3 people are covered. So it becomes super repetitive and super tiring. And Ilya is correct. You start losing concentration. You start making more mistakes, right? Meanwhile, the producer, who is the director of the play, needs to make sure that the play keeps going, right? And we're not stuck on one page. Even if we get this one page perfectly, there's no play. You just get one scene beautifully. So it's much more complicated process than it seems. It evolves, or the process evolved a lot with the digital editing and brand new equipment. We moved far away from the old school recording process, but there are advantages and disadvantages to both.
So you recorded and edited 2 CDs in the last 19 days.
Less, 16 days, because, time is money, as they also say. We asked, could we have a break between the albums? No, it costs us.
They said it's going to be quite an expensive break.
Yeah, so basically, now the danger, we could have just recorded it, went home, and then what happens? They send us all 3, what do you not like? So he says this thing, I say this, then we start arguing amongst ourselves, maybe, which we really didn't when the Rachmaninoff. Then that's a time waster. Then we come back to them in agreement. We don't like these, 20 spots in this. To give you an idea, it's a 68-minute CD. So they come up with different material. They send that back, and suddenly those 20 are fixed, but there's 4 new ones because they selected something. So we just thought for efficiency, even though I still do not know how mentally stable we are tonight. We'll mention that at 10 p.m. after the concert is done. It's a really gruesome process because it's even harder listening to yourself than playing because you're like, why did I do that? And like sometimes, like Sergey said, oh, this is so beautiful. And like, I don't like it. He like looks, it's like, but interestingly enough, we really didn't have any disagreements. We really did not. And it's like,
yes, we didn't.
Well, not real ones. Nobody stormed out of the room. Nobody needed.
Not to that extent.
Yes. I mean, it wasn't like, no, my way or nobody's way. No, it was actually very diplomatic, yet still, you still had the play director, the producer say, guys, we still have about 25 minutes of this piece left. We can't get stuck. So make up your mind. Are we fixing this or this or this? So, it's a process. It's a different process. But we believe from what we heard, it's going to be a great thing. We can talk a little bit about it. The album is called Spanish Impressions. And we recorded 4 different composers. Pereyo, Turina, Arbos, and, of course, the Casado. These are works that were done around the turn of the 20th century, and Spain was going through this incredible Gaudi and all that movement, and there was the French influence in the music. So these are really cool, all originally written for piano trio. None of these are transcriptions, and half of the album are actually Spanish dances, and the other 2 are full trios. And what's really cool about it, they allowed us to choose the repertoire, and not a lot of record companies do that. And we feel that that's one great thing that we have here in our relationship. It's not, you need to do this. It's more like we really would like to do that. And funny enough, we found 3 works out of these 4. And then during COVID time, it took us almost a year and a half to find the music for the 4th one, because the parts were scattered between London, Berlin, and Madrid. And imagine everything is shut down, and just, but they worked very hard at it. And by the way, little plug, in case you want to try the Rachmaninoff, we brought some CDs for sale today after the concert. No, but it's, we've never done that. And the record company, which has existed for 40 years, have never done that. Doing 2 albums of classical music back to back, and then editing both of them right there. But hey, it worked out, thank God.
Well, and it'll make tonight extra special because you've spent so much time in the studio, and now you get the audience to be the partner in the relationship for you. Can you talk a little bit about tonight's program?
Good. Go ahead.
That means we don't remember what we're playing.
No. You're playing the piano.
Yes, I
Okay.
do play the piano.
No, switch it up. This is the time. Just
You don't-
straight instruments.
You do not want to go to that concert.
Probably not. So we're starting the program with a beautiful piece by Amy Beach, American composer. I love this trio a lot. It's so very colorful. It's very impressionistic, and I hope you like it as well. But it will be followed by the kind of absolute opposite in style, the piano trio by Sviridov, which he started doing sketches in 1944 while he was in St. Petersburg. So you can imagine what was going on over there. So you hear a lot of war influences in this piece. It's very heavy. But the last movement, it's called Idyll. It's completely the opposite. So it's very interesting work. I hope you like it.
It's the only major trio besides Shostakovich's famous second piano trio, written by major Russian composer during World War II. So,
we read in some article about this piece when we were reading about it, that the whole theme of the piece is, don't get me literally, I'm paraphrasing, it's a beauty through a struggle. So the whole piece is about finding that the beauty and the happiness, and but it has to be through a struggle. So we have the first movement, the scherzo, we have a funeral march, and the Idyll, which is ideal, world, which is not. And now I'm just talking about the music, right? It's not entirely beautiful movement. It starts very, very beautiful, but then it goes really, really dark, and then comes out. Pretty much ending pretty tragically, I would say.
Well, pretty much like most of the Russian trios, ending with a funeral march. Yeah.
We've got a question real quick.
Sviridov?
no,
I think he's Shostakovich. I'm not
Shostakovich
sure.
is the one, right? But Sviridov actually did a lot of vocal composing, and the great Russian singer Dmitry Khravosky, who passed away. His last album that he ever put out was music of Sviridov, who so he's very well known for his choral works. But this is the only chamber work I think he actually did.
No, he has a quintet. He has a piano quintet as well.
Mm. Oh,
Just a question out of curiosity, do you remember what time period? Roughly? 20th century.
no. No, actually.
We'll be Googling that,
Yes, I will.
getting down to the bottom of it.
Well, we can do string quartets as much as, well, kind of we can. And the rest of the program, actually, the second half is a little bit lighter. We start in some ways with Rachmaninoff's first piano trio, which, of course, with
Also ends with a funeral march.
yes, but that has an interesting history to it. It was never published during the life of Rachmaninoff because he wrote it as a student, and he never really bothered to get it published, even though it's a beautiful work. It's a one-movement work. But yes, it also ends with a funeral march because, I mean, that was the tradition. I think Arensky's major trio is the only one that we know that does not end with a funeral march. It actually has a very very spiritual and exciting ending. And then we do the Rachmaninoff Vocalise, which has an interesting story because everybody knows this piece, but it's been transcribed to almost every instrument except, as it turned out, piano trio. However, maybe some of you already knew that, but Rachmaninoff, when he passed away, he became a U.S. citizen about 7 weeks before then, and he donated pretty much all of his historical documents to the Library of Congress. And in it, they found a transcription written by Jules Conius, who was an important part. I think he married one of the granddaughters of Rachmaninoff, and he was the violinist at the premiere of Rachmaninoff's second piano trio. And he did a transcription. And the fact that they found it in the archives of Rachmaninoff kind of was a signal that if Rachmaninoff didn't like it, he would have destroyed it. So we kind of, that CD that we have has the quote-unquote world premiere of that as a recording. And then we go into the Spanish world of Casado, which I think I'll let Sergei talk about because Casado was a cellist, and it's a shockingly great piece.
Shockingly.
Gaspar
Casado. He was one of the big names at the turn of the 20th century. That's sort of a wave that a bunch of cellists were riding. That cello started to become more independent, more soloistic, rather than a bass line and orchestra instrument. And at that time, Casado was just around the world, in Europe mostly. It was not an organized group, but we now know names that were super virtuosic, super talented, brilliant cellist. Popper, Fitzenhagen, Datzauer, Casado, and a bunch of others, mostly known for an educational work, etudes, exercises, short pieces. It's not a historic information. It's my feeling that they were sort of anticipating the rebirth of the instrument, and that's why they spend so much time writing educational literature, because they were sort of hinting to the cellists, guys, start working harder. The stuff that people are writing is going to become harder. You need to be technically able to do that. So, for example, it was my Piatti. Alfredo Piatti was one of them. Piatti has a sort of he has a 12 caprices, and when COVID hit for solo cello, I decided that it's going to be my project. I played almost all of them, but not all of them. And I decided that I'm going to learn all of them. I was like, I have nothing to do. I learned the first one, and I was like, I'm done. Because they're really hard. They're really hard. I played them when I was much younger. Hopper has a book of 40 etudes of a school of highest cello masterworks, something like that. So Casado was one of them. Unfortunately, he didn't leave us a lot of pieces, and they're mostly cello pieces. Back then, it was totally fine. Like right now, if anybody of you ask me, like, do we compose music? No, we couldn't do it. They were writing for themselves. They were writing for friends, a bunch of stuff. But he was surrounded by an incredible group of people. He studied composition with Ravel and Debussy. He studied cello with Pablo Casals. He was actually a great friend with Turina. So, and he was in the piano trio with his brother and father. So if you take this mix, that's the perfect storm for a great piano trio. You are active player in the piano trio, you know the ensemble, you know the technicality of the ensemble. You studied with unknown names by Ravel and Debussy, right? So he was very technically a great composer. That's why it's so upsetting that he didn't write more. And then you come out with a piece that is unfortunately often overlooked nowadays. It's difficult. It's hard to put together. It has a lot of technical challenges and ensemble challenges, but the piece is amazing.
But the interesting thing, it has a lot of technical difficulties for piano. You would think he's going to...
because you write 2 lines and you show it to your father. Your father sits down and says, change this, change this, change this. That's no. And I'm serious.
Right.
When you have... sometimes we open the piece and we were like, oh, okay, this dude did not know how to write for cello. Like, you can tell. When you, at the dinner table, you have an ability to run it by your brother, who's a violinist, your father, who is a pianist, and you yourself as a cellist, there's nothing that can be it's the best of the best writing in all the worlds. The piano world, the violin world, and the cello world.
So it's really, he does not give any special preference to the cello because he was a cellist. And
Yeah, he does.
No. Well, we'll let you judge, right? You'll hear the piece, and it's a fun piece, and it comes at you really fast, and it has one of the greatest endings there is. So if you've not heard the piece, get ready. It's very exciting is the way to put it mildly. And
We'll just say that's one of the few pieces that we are playing currently that at the very last 2 bars or 3 bars has 5 fortes printed. So when you hear us really finishing up the piece, that's not because we're going crazy. He's at 5 forte, which goes to 11. Yeah.
It's 11, that's for sure. Our time has gone by very quickly. And these lovely gentlemen earlier today did an engagement activity with our students. They are giving so much of their time beyond the stage. So please help me thank them before they head on over.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will just add one other thing. It was really fun to work with a group, and they actually played for us one of the pieces that we performed last time we were on your series, the Tchaikovsky Piano Trio, and the 3 of us have not performed it like for 3.5 years, and we came out of there saying, why aren't we playing this again? And so you see how students can inspire others, and they were so nice. And if you want to follow the trio, we're on Instagram, Hermitage Piano Trio, on Facebook. We'd like to post videos, and of course, you can keep track of when our next CD will be out there. And thank you so much. Thank you for making this happen. We'll look forward to seeing you at the concert.
Thank you.
Thank you.